Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
now it's
we're
going.
in business.
Right,
Okay, so here are, well, Milly Molly Mandy and Mother and Father and Auntie and Uncle and Grandpa and Grandpa. It makes a difference. You walking past the window, I can see the light coming and going.
Do we need to start again?
And Milly Molly Mandy, you notice, in her red and white striped summer dress. I coloured them all in very carefully when I was, well, I don't know, this was published in 1956 when I was 4, but I think I was older than that when I was reading it and colouring in. Anyway, here is the second story. It's Milly Molly Mandy spends a penny. And she literally spends a penny. She doesn't go to the ladies. Once upon a time, Milly Molly Mandy found a penny in the pocket of an old coat. And Milly Molly Mandy felt very rich indeed. She thought of all the things she could buy with it, and there were so many, she didn't know which to choose. This book was first published in 1932, so you could buy a lot with a penny, an old penny, which is a fraction of a new penny. So Milly Molly Mandy asked everybody with whom she lived in the nice white cottage with the thatched roof what they would do with it if they were her. Put it in the bank, said Grandpa promptly. He was making up accounts. Milly Molly Mandy thought that a wise idea. Buy a skein of rainbow wool and learn to knit, said Grandma, who was knitting by the kitchen door. And Milly Molly Mandy thought that a good idea. Buy some seeds and grow mustard and cress, said Father, who was gardening. Milly Molly Mandy thought that was quite a good idea. Buy a little patty pan and make a cake in it, said Mother, who was cooking. Milly Molly Mandy thought that a very good idea. Save it up until you've got 3, and I'll let you buy a baby duckling then, said Uncle, who was scooping out corn for his chickens. And Milly Molly Mandy thought that was an excellent idea. Get some sweets, said Auntie, who was very busy sewing and didn't want to be interrupted. Milly Molly Mandy thought that a very pleasant idea. And then she went to her own little corner of the garden for a think, for she still couldn't make up her mind which of all those nice things to do. She thought and thought for a long time. And then what do you think she bought? Some mustard and cress seeds, which she planted in a shallow box of earth and stood in a nice warm place by the tool shed. She watered it every day and shaded it if the sun were too hot. And there she is watering, look. And at last the little seeds grew into a lovely clump of fresh green mustard and cress that made you quite long for some bread and butter to eat it with. When it was ready to cut, Milly Molly Mandy went to Mrs. Moggs, their neighbour down the road, who sometimes had summer visitors. So that would be what we call B&B now. Mrs. Moggs, said Milly Molly Mandy, if you should want some mustard and cress for your visitors' tea, I have some to sell. It's very good and quite cheap. Why, Milly Molly Mandy, said Mrs. Moggs, that's exactly what I'm wanting. Is it ready for cutting now? So Milly Molly Mandy ran home and borrowed a pair of scissors and a little basket, and she snipped that lovely clump of fresh green mustard and cress, all but a tiny bit for her own tea, and carried it to Mrs. Moggs. So Milly Molly Mandy had done, Mrs. Moggs gave her 2pence for it. So Milly Molly Mandy had done one of the nice things and spent her penny, and now she had 2pence. Then Milly Molly Mandy took one of the pennies to the little village shop and bought a skein of beautiful rainbow wool. Grandma, she said when she got home, please will you teach me to knit a kettle holder? So Grandma found some knitting needles and showed Milly Molly Mandy how to knit. And though it had to be undone several times at first, Milly Molly Mandy really did knit quite a nice kettle holder, and there was just enough wool for it. When she'd put a loop in one corner to hang it up by, she went to Mother, who was just putting the potatoes on to boil. Mother, said Milly Molly Mandy, would you like this kettle holder? Would you think this kettle holder worth a penny? Why, Milly Molly Mandy, said Mother, that's exactly what I'm wanting, for my old one is all worn out. But the penny only pays for the wool, so you're making me a present of all your trouble. And Mother gave Milly Molly Mandy a penny and a kiss, and Milly Molly Mandy felt well paid. So MillyMollyMandy had done another of the nice things and had spent her penny and learnt to knit, and she still had her penny. So then MillyMollyMandy took her penny down to the little village shop and bought a shiny tin patty pan. And next baking day, Mother let her make a little cake in the patty pan and put it in the oven. And it was such a beautiful little cake and so nicely browned that it seemed almost too good to eat. MillyMollyMandy put it outside on the windowsill to cool. Presently along came a lady cyclist, and as it was a very hot day, she stopped at the nice white cottage with the thatched roof and asked MillyMollyMandy's mother if she could have a glass of milk. And while she was drinking it, she saw the little cake on the windowsill, and the little cake looked so good that the lady cyclist felt hungry and asked if she could have that too. MillyMollyMandy's mother looked at MillyMollyMandy, and MillyMollyMandy gave a little gulp and said, "Yes." And the lady cyclist ate up the little patty cake, and she did enjoy it. And when she'd gone, MillyMollyMandy's mother took up the pennies the lady cyclist had put on the table for the milk and the cake, and she gave one to MillyMollyMandy, because it was her cake. So MillyMollyMandy had done yet another of the nice things, and spent her penny, and still she had her penny. So then MillyMollyMandy took her penny down to the little village shop and bought some sweets, lovely big aniseed balls that changed colour as you sucked them. She wouldn't eat one until she got home, and then she gave one to Grandpa, and one to Grandma, and one to Father, and one to Mother, and one to Uncle, and one to Auntie. And then she found them 6 for herself, so she ate them, and they were very nice. So MillyMollyMandy had done another of the nice things and spent her penny, but she still had 1 penny from the mustard and cress. Then she went to Grandpa and asked him please to put it in the bank for her, and then she went to Uncle. "Uncle," said MillyMollyMandy, "I've done everything with my penny that everybody said but you, and though I can't buy a little baby duckling yet, I've got a penny saved towards it in the bank." And it wasn't very long before MillyMollyMandy had saved up to 3pence, and then Uncle let her have a little yellow baby duckling, all for her own.